Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and summertime means lake time, at least in my family, but maybe not your family. It's always a surprise to me. I grew up on the lake, and some people didn't, and so there are a lot of questions they have. Well, guess what? We're going to answer pretty much every one of those questions today, and to do that, I've invited Tracy Spry. She's a park ranger for the Army Corps of Engineers at Lake Red Rock. Tracy, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So everybody, you're pretty much used to me saying this by now, but I don't know where you're listening. Maybe you're on a podcast app. Maybe you're on a website. I don't know. What I do know is if you go to iowapodcast.com, you'll see all the badges for all the players. Apple Podcast, Spotify, it's all there. By the way, we have the Iowa Ag Podcast and the Iowa Manufacturing Podcast up there as well. I highly encourage you to subscribe to those as well. They're awesome. Tracy, thank you for coming. Red Rock is a good topic because it is Iowa's, I want to see if I get this right, it's Iowa's largest lake, right? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, we're doing well already. First question, let's ask the one thing that anybody traveling around the lake wants to know. Why is the dam closed again? What's going on with that?
Well, as much as it is a pain to have to deal with now, it's actually a positive thing. We received federal funding to actually work on some infrastructure projects. And as you may already know, the dam is over 50 years old.
Yeah.
And just like houses, things need work to be kept up. And we received some federal funding in order for us to refurbish the bridge structure, the bridge deck that overtops the large outflow tainer gates, as we call them. And so that work is ongoing, and it's taking longer than expected, granted, but not to the point where it'll take much longer. We're getting very close. And that infrastructure isn't just a matter of resurfacing the top of the road. They're actually going into the rebar and the support structure of that roadbed. And there's even a hatch if people pay attention or attend a tour of the dam with me at any point.
Okay, I'm writing that down. We could do dam tours? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a damn good time.
Once, yes.
Just kidding.
Once we're
through
the construction.
I'm going to get angry emails for that joke, I guarantee you. But go ahead.
That is a very common one.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard it before.
I'm
yes.
sure you have.
So, yes, there's a maintenance hatch that actually lives on the top of the road. I call it a big manhole cover. Uh-huh. But that allows material and supplies to be delivered into the dam at the various floors of the dam. Correct.
Oh, it sounds very Tom Cruise Mission Impossible worthy.
It does. It's exciting and in a very utilitarian way.
Yeah, for sure.
But that is also part of the work. So there's a lot of concrete curing. There's a lot of work with this new hatch. And we're getting very close, but it's taking just a little bit longer to get that done. So we've tweaked the deadline on when the road will be open. There'll be some additional partial closures, some full closures, and it's easiest for people to see that and line that out by visiting the website, lakeredrock.org, for the details.
So I'm going to start spreading rumors that the reason it's running a little later is because Dr. Evil and Tom Cruise are battling inside the dam. What would happen if this is the nightmare scenario, right? It's never going to happen. But what would happen if the whole thing collapsed? Anything actually happen? Or would it just some people would get a little wet?
There are.
You're I didn't know this was part of the deal,
question.
Justin.
No, back.
You can just decline the answer.
It's an interesting question because, after 9/11, our tours of the dam went from 150 tours a year to zero because of the concerns of what could be the concerns that we would want to approach. And for people to attend tours now, we've come through a long phase of working with our security office and figuring out what's possible. We have pre-registrations.
Wow.
And it's not a walk-in basis like it used to be back before 9/11. We used to have them open to the public, and they could just show up at 11 o'clock or 5 o'clock for a tour. But we still offer them once the construction project is done. We'll offer them again by appointment.
That's actually really interesting. I'm just teasing around here, but actually you guys have thought of that since 9/11. Like, what would happen if someone tried to do something nefarious? Like I never even imagined that at all. So talking about like safety in general, because that's a big topic you speak about. In my opener, I mentioned that some people are a little scared of water. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I've talked to people. So I grew up on the water. My family's a lake family. I had swimming lessons before I remember. And so I actually remember on one family vacation, someone got upset with me because they said, well, you swim like a fish and my daughter doesn't, and you're scaring her or something. And so my mom probably went up and like let him have it, would be my guess what she did. But there is some concern for people who don't grow up around water. And so, like, you know, some parents are scared of it. They don't understand it. They're not around it a lot. So why should they come to the lake with their kids? Because I know from personal experience, safety is a really easy thing to figure out. It's not dangerous at all. There's some very basic steps. But I figured park ranger talks about that. Maybe people would probably believe you a little bit more than they believe me.
Well, it's a good point, and that whole saying of knowledge is power goes a long way with water safety as well. We actually, one of the programs that we typically offer, especially in the schools, is a type of water safety program, and you're approaching it from the very basics of, you know, well, what do you want to wear when you're on the water? A life jacket. And if we can encourage people to wear a life jacket, that is a huge benefit. And learning to swim well, of course, is important. And there's a lot of great swimming lessons out there that are offered in YMCAs and some different entities. So if people could search for those, this is a good time of year to be looking for swimming lessons, and to learn more about why we shouldn't be afraid, because we can learn some basic strokes. We can learn how to float. We can learn how, if we get tired, we can go on our back, and we can learn proper breathing techniques. And we can get back to, again, wearing life jackets. And sometimes we have the opposite problem. People feel too comfortable with being around the water.
Sure, I can see that.
They think they're invincible. And
I would probably be more biased into that camp. Seriously, right? Like that's where I would make a mistake probably.
I think sometimes, especially with boaters, that when they're out on the water, they never think anything's going to happen to them.
Sure.
And that life jacket that the law requires them to have, with the little kids, they have to wear it if they're under 13. But for the 13 and over crowd, they have to be readily accessible. And really, just like a seatbelt is like in our car, really, we don't know when things are going to happen.
True. That's actually a good comparison.
Could we get thrown out of the boat? Yes. Could we be far away from that life jacket? And really, the only way it would have been helpful to us is to have been wearing it.
Right.
And that's really, while the law says readily accessible, my point that I make is that the only readily accessible life jacket in an accident is probably the one you're wearing that's buckled and zipped and it's on you, ready to go.
I like some of these new designs that are coming out that are super minimal and ultra thin because, you know, when I was a kid, I remember the life jacket like limited mobility and you're like, it's not fun because you can't move. But nowadays they're super thin, they're super lightweight. They even have some, I don't know how you feel about these, but they have some that are like almost barely there at all. And if you get in trouble, you just pull something. And like, are those recommended or are those kind of only a unique situation you want to use those?
Depending on what you're doing on the water.
Yeah.
If you're jet skiing, tubing, or in some type of, you're being towed and you know that you're going to end up in the water, you cannot use an inflatable jacket, whether it's one that's got a pull tab or it's one that's called inherently buoyant, not inherently buoyant, but has an automated inflator where you can actually get one that'll self-inflate if you become inundated in the water. Similar type of thing. They inflate themselves. They've got a CO2 cartridge in them. There's a lot of maintenance involved, and you can't disregard the maintenance to make sure they work. Just like that air mattress that you keep with you camping. If you don't check on it and you fill it with air, and the next camping trip, it had a leak in it. It's not going to help you if you don't do the periodic maintenance. So very important for people to keep up with that.
Yeah.
They're great. And some of my coworkers that are on boat patrol quite often will wear the hydrostatic, I believe is what they're called, where it'll automatically inflate.
Wow.
But as long as they're Coast Guard approved, there are examples of good life jackets that will either be pull tab or automatic inflate.
Okay, so that's actually good. You just mentioned, hey, if it's Coast Guard approved, you're probably good.
Mm-hmm.
You also have Bobber, the water safety dog. Like it's like a kind of a mascot kind of a thing.
Yes.
You can do classes. He can come to your school. You can go there and schedule a visit.
Mm-hmm.
There's water safety classes, life jacket relay, and sink fast. But you mentioned camping because as I was looking from a kid, I just remember Lake Red Rock. It's a lake, and you go maybe have a bonfire and that's it. But as I'm reading the website, there's a lot, and we're not going to get to a fraction of it today. But I'll let you take over a little bit, but of course I have a lot of questions, but what are some of your favorite activities to do around Lake Red Rock that maybe Iowans aren't super familiar with?
Well, a lot of them, I guess, would still fall within the familiar category if they're a frequent visitor to the lake. I'll be honest, I camp when I'm on vacation quite often, but at the lake, I work with a lot of people that are periodic, frequent campers, and they're here a lot. And I would think that what a lot of our campers would say, and from my camping experience when I go out and about when I'm on vacation, is to just be in the quiet. And I don't do the earbud thing. I like to listen to the birds. I like to hear the water. And that to me is very calming. And I think a lot of people also, the sound of family having fun at the lake, hanging around that bonfire that you mentioned, or within the campfire ring is what we would say. We've got great trails. People just come out there with their dog, have a walk, bring their bike. You know, we've got 17 miles of a paved bike trail that's just gorgeous, and it goes through woods and prairies, and again, the wildlife that you get to see and experience along the way. To me, that's probably one of the most therapeutic things that we have.
Yeah. Have you seen an increase? Obviously, COVID is weird for a lot of reasons, but have you seen an increase in activity post-COVID because everyone was shut up inside? They were socially disconnected. Mm-hmm. I think maybe people started to realize the negative impact too much technology and isolation plays on you. Have you seen an increase in attendance coming to Red Rock with people just wanting to disconnect, wanting to unplug, and wanting to connect with the people they love? Have you seen that?
Initially, once we started opening our parks back up after COVID restrictions started waning, there was a huge amount of new campers that we were seeing.
Oh, interesting.
You know, a lot of our campers that have been at it, camping for a while have graduated from a small tent and have gone to usually some form of trailer that they would use for, you know, more of an interior camping unit. But we've had a lot of tenters, starting out, and I think that was more prevalent and easier to spot after that first batch of COVID restrictions waned. And now it's a little bit harder to tell. We're always busy, especially on a weekend, and leading up to the holidays is no exception. But I think that, yes, it was very noticeable for a while, but now they've sort of been absorbed in the melting pot of campers that we have.
Yeah, because July 4th weekend is obviously... I'm actually checking because
next week.
Yeah, we pre-record these, so sometimes I get a little lost on the time frame. So here, let me check here real quick. Yeah, so by the time this airs, it's right now. It's June 29th, so it'll air July 5th. So people hearing this now, the 4th of July holiday is essentially over. We lead these by a little bit. Sometimes we do them same day. Sometimes we do them like 3 to 4 days out. But that'll obviously be a lot of activity for you guys. Now, have you seen, I got to ask this. I have to ask this. Because you have camp hookups, right? Electrical hookups and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Campsites. Do you see a lot of Tesla campers? This is like a thing now. Have you heard of this?
I have never seen a Tesla camper, no. But now that not
a Tesla. It's not like an actual unit. It's a lot of people will, because they're electric cars.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will just plug them right into a campsite. And so they'll have like air-conditioned camping. They have like mattresses in their cars, and it's like a thing called Tesla camping. They actually make these units that like mattresses you put in the back of the car, and they fold into the car. Have you seen these things?
I've seen Teslas arriving and driving around the area, but none of them have been big enough to really have a sleeping bag in them. They're the smaller ones or sedan size. So no, I will have to say that that's a new one for me, but I will be watching for them.
So yeah, it's their Model Y and Model X, just their smaller SUV. They're just their SUVs. The Model Y is a crossover SUV. The Model X is their bigger SUV. And they have little mattress packages, the second row and third row, whatever. They fold down, and there's a mattress that like custom fits in the back of these things. And so if you see a Tesla plugged into a campsite overnight, that's probably what they're doing. It's like a big thing. And because they have the glass roofs on them, you can go stargazing in temperature-controlled Tesla.
Oh, my. Well, what a wonderful niche that they've solved.
I know.
So
right?
I will be watching for Tesla campers.
I was just curious how much of that you have seen. It may be one of those things where they're there and you don't know that that's what they're doing, right? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, Teslas are a noticeable car, and I can't say that I've seen a lot of them parked on our camping pads, but that doesn't mean that now I'll be watching for them.
Now you'll be you hear that, everybody? Tesla owners, Tracy will be watching. So there are a lot of popular activities. What else comes to mind? And then I have, of course, a lot of questions on activities I was researching as well.
Well, I would think that boating will be another big one in addition to camping. We have a lot of people even come from Des Moines. They typically will come out for the day, and a lot of them will use the ramp over by Elk Rock State Park because it's a large ramp. It's off of Highway 14. It's close. But the nice thing about Lake Red Rock being the largest lake in the state is even when the boat ramps are just packed with people, you can get out on the water, and it's so big, you can find your own little spot. You don't have to be around a million other people boating. You can find your own spot with your family and enjoy without the crowds. If you choose the crowds, you can go to the beaches and find that type of spot too. But there's really something for everyone there.
Yeah. Is there a lot of fishing? Because I was noticing, again, when I was researching this, I guess I kind of thought it was like a few different fish species, and that was pretty much it. Do you know how many species you have in the lake now?
I don't know how many.
You probably don't know the
have.
specific number, but do you have because there are a lot. I was kind of shocked.
There are a lot, and we have people who fish year round from shore and from boat. And the nice thing about, again, with fishing like Red Rock is they can put in and they can be gone into a cove and not even be visible from the dam or from any major roadway. So when they're out there, they're kind of like the silent visitor. You hear about them, you see their trailer in the boat ramp. But as far as what they're catching, they're white bass. There's a big push for white bass at a certain time of the year. There's a lot of people that like to fish for catfish. We have a lot of bow fishermen below the dam that fish for, basically they're bow hunting for rough fish below the dam. And you see them with these flat bottom boats and these light bars that they use to attract the fish to their boat.
Wait, what? Really?
Yes.
I don't know anything about this. So they attract the fish to the boat. When they get close enough to the surface, they shoot them with a bow?
Yeah, and it's got a string attached to it so they can pull them back in. Yeah. Look up bow fishing and you'll see it's quite an avid sport.
There are probably lots of Iowans listening to this thinking, hey, idiot, of course there's how do you not know that? Hey, I'm learning too, everybody. Okay, so there's a butterfly garden. There are picnic facilities, but I have to ask, what's up with this tower? There's like a 100-foot tower. What is this, and why was it built?
Well, the tower was an old water tower many decades ago, and it was in a park called North Elk Rock State Park. Now it's Cordova Park. When the Marion County Conservation Board took over, they took it upon themselves to get an architect involved and basically retrofit it with an outside fiberglass stairway and cap it with an observation deck. And the view is phenomenal. I love it when the leaves are changing at the fall. But frankly, it's a lovely view from the top year round.
The leaves changing. I didn't even think about that. That would be really cool.
And if it's clear, not like right now with all the smoke and haze, but on a clear day, you can see as far as Des Moines from the tower. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
Just some of the skyscrapers there, yes.
That's incredible. I had no idea. So what do you have to reserve that? What's that look like? Do you have to be Batman and throw a hook up to the top? And how does this work if people want to check it out?
Sure. Well, they just need to go to Cordova County Park during their operating hours. In the winter, the hours are basically you have to walk into the park when the gate is shut during those off hours. But this time of the year, they have normal operating hours during the day, and there's a parking lot right there. I don't know for sure if the turnstile is working. If the turnstile is working, you need a couple quarters for each person. You plug them into a slot, and the turnstile will click each person through so that you can then climb the stairs to get to the top of the tower.
Got it. Kind of like an old school subway entrance thing, turnstile and crash bar for an exit. Kind of.
Exactly. It's and so 169 stairs to the top, so it's not for the faint of heart, but the view at the top is worth it.
Interesting. So you also have a lot of, I didn't know this either, a lot of like free rentals for kids, like a bunch of packs.
Yes.
Which is really cool because parents don't want to be lugging stuff up there. Parents obviously don't know what to get because then you get up there and you're like, oh, shoot, I wish we would have had binoculars, or I wish I would have had a net or something. So what kind of, can you break that down just broadly? Like what can parents expect from these packs?
Sure. Some of the packs that we've got involve GPS units. Back in the old days before you had a geocaching app, we actually used a real GPS unit, and people still really enjoy those for the children. And you can go geocaching, which are small things that are hidden around the area. There's well over 1 million of them worldwide, and we have about 80 of these caches hidden around the lake. So you can take the units. They've got the geocaches programmed in them. You bring some swag with you, stuff we all get, so that you can then trade with something you find in a box, and you can log it. And you set up a free account on geocaching.com. You can log your finds, how many caches you find. And I've run across a gentleman that found over 1,000 caches. He was actually taught geocaching, advanced geocaching. So he's probably well over that by now. So that's one, and I know it's off season, but one I'd like to highlight too is that we check out snowshoes during the winter time. If we have enough snow, like a 4-inch base, that's something that we have sizes for children all the way through adults. We have life jackets you can check out. We have loaner stations at the beaches and boat ramps for that as well, at the core ramps. And some of the other things I think are kind of cool are we offer a science pack. We just have one because it includes a microscope, some science experiments that you can do, and just a bunch of slides that you can look at under the scope, and ways for you to make your own slides. So it's for those budding scientists. We have, I think one of the things I like best is the bug exploration pack. So if you want to...
That's my wife's favorite choie. I'm just kidding. She's the one that in the house. My job is to, take out the bugs.
You're the bug squisher?
Yeah, I'm the bug squisher. That's my job.
Well, we would like to promote people appreciating the bugs and the uniqueness that we have of
I was trying to be careful how I said that, but then you just totally called me out. I was trying to say I remove the bugs, but you just totally called me out, Tracy.
No.
I promise I won't come up and squish your bugs.
Well, we even had a large wolf spider in the office.
Really?
I nicknamed him Aragog, but
that's cool, actually.
I'm not sure he's still alive. He may have gotten squished. So not everybody appreciates him, even in our office. But we have a lot of great butterfly species available. We've got, anything from the smallest to the largest. There's a really lot of neat things you can explore. So we have a butterfly net. There's bug books in there. There's a book called Insectigations to help people kind of think about what we might even have. And if you look, there's one that actually makes a little funnel and traps bugs that fall into it. It's called an ant lion. And if you know what you're looking for, even in your own backyard.
Is this the plant or is this
This is an insect that lives in a small funnel-shaped trap that it creates, and then an ant will fall in it. Yeah, it's a thing. And so when you read about these in some of these books, you learn a lot. I learned it from one of my coworkers, but yeah, antlion, look it up, and you'll actually see with as dry as it's been. Look around where your hose reel is. You'll see these little funnel shapes in the sand, and those are from a little creature at the bottom that's waiting for something to get caught in the trap, and for it wants to eat it.
Interesting.
And we're getting into fireflies. We have a firefly walk this upcoming Friday, assuming we don't get rained on anyway. But there's a bunch of different kinds of fireflies out there. They have different patterns. They actually, some of them eat each other by attracting them with a mimicked pattern. So there's a lot of
and the whole idea behind the packs is that kids can learn about this and watch it in real time and explore this stuff. And there are little nets and microscopes and all this cool stuff. There's a disc golf pack, insect pack. There's like a pond one, snowshoe science pack, bird pack, geocaching pack, tracking pack. What is this one?
Well, for those that find an interesting animal track in their yard, you can actually take some plaster. We have a small container of plaster, and you can learn how to make your own plaster cast that you can keep.
Really?
Or if you don't find any interesting tracks, there's track molds of like a coyote and a fox or a different set of, I forgot which ones. And then you can create your own mold, kind of like a Jello mold. You'll pour the plaster Paris in it. It'll pop out. It's a silicone mold, and you can learn about the different packs. There's some track information in there too, so that when you do see a particular track, it can help you figure out what it is.
That's fascinating. So, last 5 minutes, I want to talk about kind of like the more sustainability aspects that are really of interest right now. Power and water clarity, cleanliness, whatever we call that. Mm-hmm. I think that stuff gets in the news, like sustainable energy and all this stuff gets in the news a lot. And oftentimes the people speaking about it the most are those who know the least, especially on like social media. Mm-hmm. And that Facebook friend of mine told me XYZ. So is like water quality, because I know Red Rock gets a lot of runoff. And when I say runoff, I think there's a negative connotation most people assign to that, but it's not a negative thing. It's just, that's what water does. It runs off of dirt into river systems. So is there a concern right now about water quality? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What is the reality from park rangers and you guys that are basically keeping everything clean?
Well, this time of the year, a lot of people are concerned because of the amount of boating and swimming that people are doing. So quite often the question comes up, especially if it makes the news at a given cycle, is the water clean? Maybe something comes up about Saylorville, and so they make the connection and will call us. We actually have a contract with Iowa State University to check our water on a weekly basis, mostly from the fact that we're looking for bacteria issues that might impact boaters and swimmers. So there's some test areas that we will do. And if there are questions on a particular, so it varies. I guess the answer to your question is water quality is going to vary by the week based on how much runoff, how much rainfall we have, what type of wave action, and those types of questions. I have not seen the water quality result for this week yet, but we have not had to post at all any advisories for our beaches or for the lake. So let's hope for more of the same. So at this point, that's been great news.
Yeah, it is good.
The other thought that I think sometimes gets left behind is the fact that we have a lot of sedimentation that does affect our lake. And that's a type of water quality issue as well, especially when people continually seem to think that the lake is low. Oh, the lake looks so low. But what they might be seeing is some of the backwater areas off Whitebrust Creek. You can actually see some of those are not as deep as they used to be. Oh. And that is a concern that there are various groups that are still trying to figure out how can we slow sedimentation, which is a natural process, but how can we slow that down? Our soil type and the fact that we're the most altered state in the nation, there are different factors at play, but there's no one group that's responsible. Well, it's a large thing that needs to be considered from a very large.
What is it though? Like I've never even heard of that. So what is sedimentation? How does it happen? What are people seeing? Mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like muddy water is what you're seeing. If you look at a lot of stream banks, you see where it's been undercut. The soil has basically loosened and has fallen into the water. And sometimes you'll see trees that are kind of hanging off to the side because they've lost their structure that held their roots in place. That's what you're seeing. And again, that is a normal process, but certain soil types are more susceptible to erosion. And there's different groups that are saying, well, who's responsible? Who's most responsible? Where is it coming from for the most part? How can we slow it down? And those are, eventually it's estimated we get about 400,000 dump truck loads of dirt into the lake every year.
Wait, just from sedimentation?
Just from
sedimentation?
Erosion?
Really?
Right,
wow.
Right. It comes from a long ways away. We're a very large watershed, but
some of that is coming from like Minnesota and
Saylorville will catch some of the stuff that's coming from that far away, but we've got some tributaries that come into us that are, bringing us a very healthy supply of it.
And so is that like one of the reasons sedimentation and erosion, is that one of the reasons that lake water is a little, for lack of like a little darker and dirtier looking, and some ocean water is different because of that? Is that pretty much the primary reason? You can consider me a water idiot.
Well, it can look muddy, and if you try to see through it, and it might have a muddy appearance, or if you actually fly over a lake and you see some aerial photos, you might actually see brown plumes along some of the points of land that stick out a little bit. Some of the aerial photos of Lake Red Rock will clearly see that, especially if there's a clay soil. It seems like there's a lot of times where you might notice that on an aerial photo.
Sure.
And that would be a type of sediment load. Now, I'm from Wisconsin, so we had brown water sometimes from the tannins of the plant life or the leaves that were breaking down.
So dirty water is not necessarily dirty.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It's still a naturally occurring substance.
It's actually probably dirt or plants. Not like there's all this toxic stuff in the water. It's just dirt and plants, which is supposed to be there for the most part.
Well, yes. But it can cause its own. It can cause its own issues. Temperatures that go up, and clarity issues, and problems with plants not being able to get enough sunlight to grow. There's natural, but there's a limit to how much we really want.
Last couple seconds. How much power do we get from the Red Rock Dam?
Well, since 2021, prior to that time frame, we didn't actually generate any power, but there is now a power plant run by Missouri River Energy Services. I think they can go up to about 33 to a little over 50 megawatts during operation. And we actually have two amazing gentlemen that run the power plant, and they do offer tours as well.
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah.
And they can provide some amazing details, and they even have some great graphics there. But
that's very cool.
But that is a new thing, and that's a new form of green energy that's only been fairly recently been available through Red Rock.
Very cool. So if people want to learn more information, they want to rent some of these kid packs, there are campsites all over to rent. There, like I said, we got through, you brought, I'm going to post this picture to iowapodcast.com. You brought a lot of research material with you, and I would guess, what would you say? We got through about 5%? Maybe of the activities going on at Lake Red Rock. Is that fair?
It's
maybe
better
10%?
to be prepared. Sure. Yeah, I think so.
So I would definitely encourage everybody to go check it out. What's the easiest way to do that? Is it the website, and what is that?
LakeRedRock.org is going to be the easiest way. It'll get you to where, if you're wanting to rent a campsite, it'll get you to the page where you'd reserve through recreation.gov, calendar events, a picnic shelter rental. If it's something that's run by a different agency, it'll get you to their page as well.
And if anybody is a Tesla camper, please send your photos to me, and I'll make sure Tracy gets a copy of those as well. We'll post those to iowapodcast.com. My email is justin@iowapodcast.com. And of course, I'll put all this stuff in the show notes at iowapodcast.com. Tracy Spry, Park Ranger with the Army Corps of Engineers at Red Rock. Thank you so much for coming in the studio, and thank you so much for your time. I know the listeners appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.